Elizabeth Browning Fox discusses the Williams-Burris lineage during the Civil War era. Liz was interviewed February 12, 2014 by Sandy Jones Garrison.
We do have the lineage on Hatteras down pretty well from once they get here. We know who they are, and there are a few disagreements, but there were a whole lot of family Bibles. So you go forward to the latter 1800s. Now, all of the old families, the same names are still down here, with the exception of just a few. Few names have been lost, and that's probably because they must have had a slew of girls, and the family names went to the husbands. The Williams family, they were originally from Kennequoit. Bateman Williams came down here to Buxton to be an assistant lighthouse keeper at Cape Hatteras Lighthouse in 1860. His wife was Axa Maria, it's spelled Maria, but it's pronounced Maria Scarborough. And they had 8 children. I think there were 4 girls and 4 boys. Bateman was assistant lighthouse keeper. There were 2, both of them were Williams, who were the assistants. And 1860 was an interesting time because we were, right at the very beginning of the unrest that became the Civil War. When the head lighthouse keeper got the order from the Confederacy to remove the light from the lighthouse, Bateman was there. He and the other Williams took care of a beacon that was out on Cape Point. There was a secondary lighthouse out there, and they just called it the beacon. That was his primary job, was taking care of the beacon. But the lighthouse keeper, the main lighthouse keeper, had to leave the island because he had removed a navigational aid, and that was probably, I don't know what they'd call it, treason, or it was very much against the law, so he had to leave. Bateman Williams, however, had 8 children and a wife, and I think the assistant keeper quarters had been built then, so he had a place to live. He stayed here and was lighthouse keeper during the entire Civil War. He was never made a main keeper, and I can only guess that was because he had been a Confederate. He did sign to say that he was not going to fight the Union, but they brought in a good Union lighthouse keeper to be the head light keeper there. It must have been incredibly stressful. He died in 1866. He was only 45 years old. His wife, Axa Maria Scarborough Williams, was young. She was in her, I think she was in her early 30s. Even though she had had 8 children, she was still very young, and they didn't waste good women down here. Well, she remarried and outlived that second husband. Well, then she remarried again. She was the original cougar, I think, because she was 40, I think she was 45, and her third husband was 27, and he actually did outlive her. He was a fisherman. She didn't have children after her first husband died. She didn't have any more children. She was so well loved that when she died and her third husband's family buried her, the second husband's family came that night and dug her up and stole her and buried them in their family plot. Well, I think she eventually got back in the right place. She's buried right across from the entrance to Our Lady of the Seas in Buxton.